Okay, so I think we'll just kick off. Welcome everyone to the Narryer Metals investor company update following the announcement that the company has acquired a 70% interest in two projects located in Yellowknife Lithium Province in Northwest Territories in Canada. This is subject to shareholder approval, but not going to waste any more time going through the announcement. I'll just hand you straight over to Gavin, who can take you through the presentation and explain the significance of these projects and how they then fit into Narryer's future trajectory. Over to you.
Thanks, Ev, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. I'll just go through the normal disclaimer. We'll just hit this. So, as most people that are on here are aware, that we have got into 70% of a fairly exciting lithium project in the Yellowknife Lithium Province in Northwest Territories in Canada. Now, this area is probably one of the areas in the world where there hasn't been a huge amount of lithium exploration in the past, but there definitely now seems to be an emerging province. So there are two places at the moment I would be exploring for lithium in pegmatites in the world at the moment. That's obviously Western Australia, that being the Yilgarn and Pilbara cratons. And then the other area where we basically dipped our toes in last year is the Superior Province in Canada, and that's where you got James Bay and Northwest Ontario. This is another craton called the Slave craton, and it's very similar, I guess, to the Pilbara craton. And it has existing known occurrences of LCT pegmatites, and it also has known lithium mineralisation. So the two projects that we've got both have good evidence of lithium, cesium, tantalum pegmatites, and there's been some early work done, particularly at the Big Hill prospect, and we'll go into that a little bit more. We know that there's mineralisation there, and we have pretty good neighbours, and that being the Lift Power. That's a Canadian listed company on the Ventures board, with a market cap of about 170 mil. And we're right up against the big lithium project, which is their key project that they're working on at the moment. So we think, and we also see that there's mineralisation and there's drilling right up to the tenement boundary. So we think we're in a fantastic spot, and we have plans this year to get in, do a little bit more field work, but also get some drilling done. So this area is actually, even though it's quite high latitude, like we're kind of the equivalent to Alaska, I guess, it has pretty good infrastructure around Yellowknife, and we're only 30 k's from Yellowknife, and we're off a major road. So this is a fantastic opportunity to get in on a project that we think we can get significant value in. So this is, I guess, the snapshot of the big project. That's a project that Lift Power has. They've been drilling that for the last year or so, and they're finding that they've got pretty good mineralisation, and that mineralisation all goes to the tenement boundary. We've looked at some of the satellite imagery and LiDAR that was put together by the vendor, and also, as you can see, there's also some early stage channel sampling, so we can see that there's mineralisation following on from the Lift project into areas that Narryer are going to acquire. The other important thing about this, and it's something to look at with this map, this map's fairly important. There's two things. We are in a pretty good position regarding providing infrastructure for any mining in that area, and that's because firstly, we don't have any issues with restricted land that being there's a whole series of land that's held up by an equivalent to native title, and that's still being resolved. It's been in the process for 15 years. It was supposed to take 5. It's taken 15, and there's no resolution to that at the moment. So any development on this kind of project, particularly for us, obviously we have available space to put infrastructure. The other thing is here, just purely and simply looking at the map, you can see that on the western side of the map there's lots of lakes, and on the eastern side of the map there's not as many lakes. So that's probably a good thing for us. So the two projects, Big Hill and Fran, but Big Hill's be the main area we're concentrating on. Archean slave craton near Yellowknife with over 50 known lithium occurrences. The area that we've got in both projects kind of sit in that beautiful, what referred to geologically is the Goldilocks zone. That's like within about a 3 to 6 kilometre buffer of these fertile granites, and it's in sediments, which is what you want. There has been initial exploration done on this area in 2023, and we'll go through a little bit of that, particularly in the Big Hill area, but also in Fran, where we not only see evidence of lithium, but also tantalum, which I'll talk about. So as I said, it's a lithium hotspot. The big player in there is Lift Power. Loyal Lithium also has ground, and another area that you might heard of recently that has been starting their exploration in that area is Trinex Minerals. That's Todd River. So the area is starting to see some significant exploration activity, particularly around that Yellowknife area and not far from the sealed Ingham Trail, which will easily be able to provide a pathway to moving material to export. So getting on to the location and infrastructure. So Yellowknife is an established town, I think of about 30,000 people. And the project's about a 30-minute drive along the Ingham Trail. It has regular commercial flights from Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. And it also has a long history of gold mining, but also most people that would know that's where Rio has a lot of their kind of diamond projects, and the one Diavik is, tier 1 diamond project, but there's also been rare earth and uranium mining in the past. So exporting material from the project area, if we get to that point, is pretty good. Like we can haul it to a major train line point at Hale Point, and that sits on the Slave Lake. You can either get there by barge or you can get there by truck, and then that rail line gets you into the Canadian rail network, which will also get you to the US rail network. So we've got established infrastructure. So if something happens, we're not out in the boondocks. So just getting onto the big projects, known spodumene. We know that there's spodumene hosted in the area. We know it's on the tenure. As I said, it's near the big lithium projects of Lift Powers. So the Lift Power project, it's about 2 k's of combined strike length of probably 20 metre, 30 metre average widths of between 1 to 1.7% lithium. And look, they're working away at a resource. I kind of have a guess of what that is, but so it's definitely at a mineable. It'll definitely be, if the resource stacks up, the size hopefully will be of a mineable size. They've drilled about 8,000 metres at Big, and they're currently drilling about 3,000 metres, of which some of those holes are almost right to the tenement boundary. So there'll be some interesting results coming up, which, if they've got lithium, we can basically follow along in the next drill line. So we've talked about the infrastructure. I've talked about the fact that it's in, that our project is in a pretty good place, that most of it doesn't fall within that, well, none of it falls within that restricted First Nations area. So the exploration done so far in 23 included some ground truthing of structures and pegmatites. That did some handheld lib sampling. That's a handheld device that can measure lithium. And they also completed some channel sampling. So in that work, it wasn't a huge amount of work, but in that work that they kind of looked up near the tenement boundary, they found pegmatites with spodumene. I think that they did about four channel samples. The best they got was 1.16% over 5 meters, including a 2.6 lithium over a meter. And they also found another pegmatite with 2.5% lithium over a meter. There were other pegmatites in the area that they also identified spodumene in, but they didn't do any channel sampling. They ran out of time. So that'll be something obviously that we'll follow up. Some of these initial channel sample areas we could probably get in and start drilling. Once we kind of get a good feel of what's going on, we'll probably start putting some permitting in to do some drill lines across some of these mineralised pegmatites. Just touching on the Fran project, this is particularly the Ryber pegmatite, which is one of the historic beryl rare earth occurrences, but that also has shown to contain lithium. Not in spodumene, but in a whole lot of other lithium minerals. We've still got to investigate that a little bit. But that's not to say that there's not spodumene in the system. We just haven't seen it yet. There's a whole series of pegmatites running along the same strike, and we'll follow those up. The stake knives, I guess, in this this particular Fran is the tantalum. So most tantalum comes out as a byproduct when you take out spodumene, but it's not that common that you have a tantalum alone project. But there are a few in the world, and so usually tantalum in a lithium project is about 200 to 400 ppm, whereas the lithium in this project, the tantalum. So the tantalum in this project is nearly 0.6%. So that's a really high grade tantalum assay from some grab samples out of a channel. The highest grade kind of project that I know mining tantalum is about 0.2% tantalum. So if we can follow up a couple of million tonne of that, given that tantalum's worth $190 a kilo, that's actually quite a nice little tantalum project that we could start putting together. So as you said, there is evidence of lithium. There's, that they did some assays that got up to nearly 4% lithium, but that needs some petrology to work out what's hosting the lithium. They did a couple of channel samples on 2 different pegmatites that showed elevated lithium, probably in lepidolite, but that's not. We'll have to get out there and confirm that. But exploration wise, given the nature of those pegmatites, they kind of sit in an area that we think is kind of like out of the spodumene zone. So what we have to do now is kind of head to that spodumene zone, do a fair bit of mapping and sampling, and kind of work out where we are in the fractionated system, and then kind of keep working on that. But as we said, the other good thing is that we can also keep working on that tantalum. There's 40 pegmatites on this area. A lot of that hasn't really been properly followed up. And noting as well that the work done by the vendor concentrated on lithium and not tantalum, so we're still probably going to do some assaying to kind of work out how much tantalum is in some of this system. So just touching on the acquisition, we think it's a pretty good deal. There's a little bit of cash, and like 15 million shares initial payment. and then some milestone payments, which, if those milestones come through, then we're pretty happy with that, and it shows value. Just touching also on the new share structure, with the capital raise, we're at the moment we're raising about $1 million plus vendor considerations. We've moved from about 65 million shares to 106 million shares, but still pretty good structure in regards to who's holding those shares. We've got some new shareholders that we think are going to be pretty sticky, and also going to help build the project. So we're kind of happy with who we've now got on board. Just touching on some of the other Canadian projects, we'll concentrate mainly on these 4 projects, mainly to start the ball rolling. We'll start doing some work on the Zircon Lake and the Sapowie projects in northwest Ontario, and the reason for that, we think we can get into these areas relatively easy without helicopters, and without booking helicopters. And once the snow melts, we have a geologist available that we can send in and start doing some initial work on those. They look pretty exciting. They're in a known lithium province in northwest Ontario, not far from Thunder Bay. And yeah, we kind of put these together with some work that we did at the end of last year, kind of looking at that northwest Ontario province and identifying the fact there's still a fair bit of vacant open ground that we actually could get hold of without doing any deals. And then obviously there's Walrus Island, which we've seen spodumene on, and we're pretty excited about, and we'll get up there this year as well. Not forgetting our Australian assets, and I guess the key one that we'll be working on sooner than later is the Rocky Gully. We want to basically get some drilling done on our carbonatite target, and we'll get that done before the end of the financial year, because we want to take advantage of the government funded to pay for half the drilling costs. So we're pretty happy with that. Narryer will keep ticking along. We've kind of found some interesting gold anomalism that we're going to follow up. And then the Ceduna project is fairly low cost for us. We have multiple targets in PGEs, scandium and rare earths that we're ready to basically drill, and we'll fit that in maybe later in the year when we've kind of finished our work in Canada. I won't go too much on this. Everybody who's probably involved in this know the board, and we're pretty excited that we're kind of moving ahead with this project. It's taken us a little bit of time to kind of put it together. There's a few back and forwards, and then some regulatory kind of with the ASX. But now that we've basically got past that, and we just wait for shareholder approval, we'll think that we're on a pretty good project here, and I think we'll start showing some really good shareholder value in the next 6 months. Thanks.
Gav, look, I probably should have mentioned at the start of this, if anyone had any questions, to either type them through, or seems we're at this stage, just raise your hand and I can allow you to talk and ask Gav any questions that you might have. So I'll just give everyone a quick minute to do that. Does anyone have any questions? No hand raises? No questions? I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, so anyone that's kind of wants an idea of how, like the lithium lift power, probably go to Lift Power's website and have a look at the extensive work that they're doing at the moment, right up to our tenement boundary. So we'll be watching that pretty carefully.
Perfect. Thanks, Gav. That was great. This is recorded, so I'll get that out to anyone that has missed it today.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.